Coming up on this week's episode of Flashtalk, Kent State head football coach Kenni previews the wagon wheel rivalry. Plus, Kent State men's basketball head coach Rob Senderoff recaps his first two games against Miami, Hamilton, and Auburn. Laura Rybka, Kent State cross-country head coach, previews Baidy Ba's third consecutive appearance in the national championships in Madison, Wisconsin this weekend. And finally, Kent State women's basketball head coach Todd Starkey talks about his team's North Carolina trip and their two upcoming home games this week. All that and more coming up in a flash. Welcome into our Flash Talk studios. Dane Richardson joined by head ball coach Kenni Burns. Coach, we appreciate the time, and we're heading into senior day, and I wanted to start with this senior class. There's a lot of guys that have made a really big impact.
It's a special group of young men. I set the stage pretty clear at the end of the season last year saying that there'd be a little bit of a youth movement coming in, and it'd be some guys who'd be playing who really hadn't had much experience, and I don't know how many games we'd win. And this senior class made the choice to come back and still be a part of this football team, which is really exciting. And I love these guys. I'm never going to forget about them. And they're a special group.
And Luke Floria, he continues to put up numbers each and every week. Yep. He a fantastic receiver. He's been here through the long haul before you got here, during your tenure. What has he meant to you?
Luke's probably one of the closest players I am to on our football team. He's just a special guy. He's a gritty guy. He believes in what we're doing. He's a guy that's always going to come back around, and he's been a great leader to that room, that receiver room. And I think Luke's a special guy. I hope he gets into coaching someday, but I don't know if he will. But I love Luke and what he's all about.
You got the rivalry game against the school down the road. I don't think you have to mention how much this game means more, not only to you guys, but the Kent State fans. So how much you guys revved up for this big game?
It's so important. I've been a part of some really good rivalries. The Paul Bunyan Axe at Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Rose of Floydale between Iowa and Minnesota. I played in the Oak and Bucket between Indiana and Purdue, so I know what they're all about, and this one's no different. This is one of the most historic rivalries in college football. It's unique because the school's so close to where you are, and you know the people. Some of your neighbors might be people who went to the school down the road, and our guys are revved up for it to get the wheel back.
How much extra motivation do you think that adds?
Oh, they remember it, and we've watched it, and I think we've just learned what it takes to finish it this year. I think they know that, like, okay, we played 3 good quarters of football. We didn't finish the fourth quarter, and now we got to do our job. But each team's different. This is a different football team. We're a little bit younger this year. It's some guys' first taste of this, and they're starting to get an understanding of it based on what the older guys are telling them. So it'll be a unique game. They're always fun to coach in because you see the energy revved up, and you know how important it is to the university and the program.
Miami, Ohio, you did have a few sacks in that game. Stephen Daly had a couple. What have you seen from your defensive line in the second half of the season?
And we're playing a lot of guys that we were not expecting to play going into the year, especially at the interior defensive line. And I thought the one consistent has been Stephen Daly. He's been really consistent all year in how he's playing. And now you got Cam Mills playing at a pretty high level as well, and Josh Baca. So there's some really good bright spots among our defense that makes the future look really bright.
You said the name Josh Baca. He had a flurry of tackles a couple of weeks ago at home, and then he forces the fumble to start off. You guys take the lead. How explosive of a player is he in that back end?
He's really starting to cut it loose, and that shows you the maturation of a kid who stays in the program and who grows. And we've got a lot of guys who are new to the program, but Josh Baca is a great example of if you stay and stay true to the work and to the process, that eventually it'll click for you. And he's playing out of his mind right now. I think he's playing at all conference level, and I'm excited about him, excited about the future. You look at next year when you get Alex Branch back with Josh Baca, Xavier Coakley, that's a pretty talented back end.
Moving forward with your offense, what are you looking to see through your final 2 games of the season and improvement on that side of the ball?
Just consistency. We started the game off last week with a couple really good drives, and then we have the turnover, and it seems like woe was me. We got to move on and be consistent and move the ball. We got ability. We got talent. We got to play better up front. We didn't play well up front, but consistency is the biggest thing on that side of the ball.
What are some of the things your team has to do to take down your rival?
Oh, it's no different than any other game. You got to protect the football. You got to force turnovers and protect the football. You got to find a way to create explosive plays. I think is really important. And then you got to score touchdowns in the red zone. And we talked about that being the green zone. We got to find a way to get 7, not 3. They're a high-powered offense. I think they threw the ball 52 times last game. They got a very good quarterback. We got to get him off his spot, and we got to just execute and do what we do.
Krishan McCray, he had a then career high against the school down the road last year. when he's involved in the offense and is having a big game, what does that do to the rest of your offense?
Whenever Two's playing at a high level and he's impacted the game, it's typically boding well for us. And the statistics show that, the studies show that. So how much we can get him involved early, get him in the rhythm, get him playing well, it typically loosens up the defense for everyone else. So that's our task this week, of finding ways to get him involved, creative ways, and then letting him do what he does. And I always think in rivalry games, the playmakers have to make plays for you to win. And that's no difference between him, Kai, and Luke. They got to make plays.
The Wagon Wheel Rivalry coming up against the school down the road. That's Kent State head football coach Kenni Burns. Coach, we always appreciate the time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Go Flashes, kick grab.
For every just one more mile to your next ace on the court, when you have a sports-related injury, Cleveland Clinic is here. For our Cavaliers, our Guardians, and athletes at all levels, our sports medicine team helps keep you in the game. With expert diagnosis, personalized sports therapies, and game-changing surgeries. For every injury, for every athlete, for every care in the world. Cleveland Clinic.
I think you can do so much from traveling the world. So many people just stay in the box that we live in.
The study abroad program at Kent State made it clear what path I should be taking.
Experiencing the different classes to experiencing the art and the buildings and the culture. I'm just hoping to take back everything I've learned and be able to apply it into whatever I do in the future.
Kent State has basically helped to set up the vision for the career that I want to be able to go through.
Welcome back to our Flashtalk studios. Dane Richardson, pleased to be joined by Kent State men's hoops head coach Rob Senderoff. Coach, once again, we thank you for the time, and we'll start with your first couple of games this season. Your home opener against Miami Hamilton certainly looked like your defense locked them down, especially in the second half. Your thoughts?
Well, it was good the way we shared the basketball in that game. When you're playing a non-Division I, often you'll overwhelm them with athleticism, which I think we did. But to be able to share the basketball, have 23 assists on 28 baskets was promising. So that part of it I was happy with for sure. And good to start the home season, with a win that way and for everybody to be able to contribute.
At Auburn, you guys were down early, then all of a sudden in the second half, you cut it all the way down to 4 points. Can you mention your team's resilience?
We sort of came out of the gate a little shell-shocked. I think Auburn certainly had something to do with that. They have a great environment and a great team. This is, right now their computer ranking is 1. I think their AP or coaches poll ranking is 5. So they're certainly one of the elite teams in the country. And I think we came out of the gate very, very slow. Vaughn picked up, 2 fouls in 3 minutes. That didn't help. But we did cut the game to 4 in the second half for the vast majority of the second half. It was the game was in reach. I wouldn't say it was nip and tuck, but it was within reach for most of the second half. And late they sort of pulled away. Which was a little disappointing that we didn't finish off the game as strongly as we did to get back in the game. But a lot of positives we can get out of that experience, a lot of things that can help us moving forward, and a lot of things that I think we gained from being in that environment and playing against that team. We only had 8 turnovers on the road at Auburn with their length and the way that they guard the ball. We did not get a lot of assisted baskets in that game. And again, something we need to learn from as we move forward. If we're trying to beat good teams, we have to make sure that we share the basketball. So a lot of things that we can learn that I think can help us.
Von Cameron Davis was a big source of offense in that game, but you mentioned only 8 turnovers. Jalen Sullinger handled the ball a lot, also provided a nice punch of scoring for you guys. We were obviously unsure. The fans were unsure if he was going to play this season. He's obviously in.
Well, Jalen's had he's been great ever since he's come back with everything, with his preparation and practice, with his leadership in the locker room, his on-court leadership, everything that for me as a coach I could ask for out of him, he's provided and more. And he's obviously played well in the games also. Lafayette, we would not have won without his contributions. We were struggling in that game out of the gate. We started that game down 10-0. He was part of a group of guys that entered the game and really changed the momentum of that game against Auburn. we were down again 10-0. And in the first half of that game, the only guy that was really able to score and provide us some offense early on in the game was Jalen. So he did a great job there. There was a stretch in the second half where it was close, where I think some of the decisions he made with the basketball, I think he wished he had back. But his effort was really, really good in that game. And he provided a lot of energy and made some defensive plays that helped keep us in the game as well, down there, as well as in the game against Lafayette. We had a 2-point game with 20 seconds to go. He had a chest up that allowed Clarant to have a game-saving block. So Jalen's really provided tremendous on-floor leadership.
Another home game this Thursday against Greg Paulus's Niagara Purple Eagles. What are you expecting?
They're really, really athletic. They get the ball up the floor really quickly. Our staff just watched their game against Detroit here this morning. Michigan State, they played them really tight for a half, and then the game got a little bit away from them. But a lot of transfers, not a lot of new players. They play incredibly, incredibly fast. They play basically with what is 4 or 5 guards on the court almost at all times. So our defensive discipline is going to be tested. We're going to work on that this week. We're going to have to do a great job rebounding the basketball against them. If we don't out-rebound them, we're going to have a tough time in that game, because our size and physicality are going to have to come through, because their speed is going to be something that we're going to have to match up to their speed. So our physicality is going to be something that we have to utilize to our advantage. And it's a good opportunity to get back out there. It's been, it's going to be over a week since we've played. So I know our guys are excited to get on the court.
Flashes will take on Niagara. Coach Senderoff, we always appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dave.
Looking for a home loan? Come to where the grass is greener. Green Lending. We're a lending team here for you, locally based in Independence, Ohio, and owned by local college athlete graduates. We make the loan process easy and stress-free, so you can focus on finding your dream home. Whether you're the first-time buyer or refinancing, we've got your back. Call us today at 216-999-5343 or visit us at greenlending.com. And don't forget to provide the promo code Kent State to have an appraisal fee waived. Green Lending, exclusive mortgage lender of Kent State Athletics.
Welcome back to our Flash Talk studios. Dane Richardson alongside Kent State cross country coach Laura Rybka. Coach, appreciate you joining me. Just finishing up NCAA regionals and MAC championships. Just overall, your thoughts for both the men's and the women's clubs.
Both teams have done really well this season. I think it's always hard to adjust to new things, whether it's a different training style, different coaching style. And I think we've had a lot of growth. I think not all of the growth has been shown in our results, but I think sometimes you have to do a lot of groundwork before you see those jumps. But it's been really enjoyable, and I think both teams are in, a solid place, and we're just looking to continue to get better.
Baidy makes his 3rd consecutive national championships coming up this weekend. How has he been able to sustain success year after year after year?
He goes to bed on time. He does his rolling. He does his core. He does his stretching. He knows how to run workouts appropriately. And I think also we've made some changes to his training that I think have he's responding well, but also all the little things that he's doing. I think those are what add up to his consistent success. So I think in distance running, if you're not committed to the small things, you're not going to be successful. And I think, like I said, but he has the talent, but he also has that dedication and work ethic.
And sticking on the men's side, who are some other runners where you saw some significant growth from the start of the fall season until now in November?
One is Nick Huger. He came in at, I would say, our last place guy, and even at MAC, he was last on the team. He was dealing with some illness, but at the regional race, he took third for us and ran like really, really well. And I think it also just shows that like if you're patient, things pay off.
To the women's side, I know you had a couple of freshmen that were pretty successful this season. What can you say about their development?
All three of the freshman women, I think they're, again, very dedicated. They're very different from each other, but I think they all care about the sport and they want to be successful. And I think all three of them are fairly coachable as well. And I think that has also helped contribute to their success. But a lot of it is just like their dedication and work ethic as well.
Coming over from Grove City, what are some of the biggest things you've learned being your first year at Kent State?
Ooh, I feel like I've learned a lot of things. I think one thing I've learned is that, and I think I did this at Grove City some too, that like I may have a coaching style and I may have an approach, but I also have to take into consideration the group I'm coaching. It doesn't mean I'm going to completely change my approach, but to like understand where they're coming from. I think it's, you know, like the coach is in charge, but it's like it goes both ways to an extent. So I think understanding that. I also think understanding like the competitiveness of D1, like it's so different, you know? And I think that's where it's just, it's a very different experience having, you know, like there's this much margin between all the runners, whereas in D3, there's this much margin, you know? So I think those are like two things I've learned and hopefully continue to get better, you know, as I coach here.
I'm not going to talk about any specific recruits, but moving forward, how excited are you to bring in some new runners to this program and really recruit some of those kids you're excited about?
For me, it's like I know my values as a coach and I know why I coach and I know the type of athlete that's going to like hopefully be successful within that system. And I think finding people that like want to be part of what we're building, there's already something awesome here, but also being like, I want, you know, I think it's different to go to a school that's established for a program and our distance, you know, currently we're not horrible, but we're also not the strongest. And I think there's something cool to being part to building something. So I think finding the people that fit that has been really exciting. I don't really try to oversell. I just tell you, this is what we have. And if you want to be part of it, that's awesome. If not, that's awesome too.
What do you want the offseason to look like for your long distance program specifically?
We roll straight into track because we're cross, indoor, outdoor. So really there is no off season. Gotcha. Except for after outdoor track, you get a bit of a break. And I think that's where it's a grind to be a distance runner. Yeah. But we're really looking, I think, to like continue building. They do have a little bit of like downtime, but to continue building on what we've done this fall and like focus on the small things. The training will look a little different for different groups, but to just be, I think, consistent and dedicated.
Kent State cross country coach Laura Rybka. Laura, we appreciate the time and hopefully Baidy has some great success in Madison this weekend.
Thank you.
Coming up this week in Kent State athletics, Kent State men's basketball has their second home game of the year inside the Mack Center as they take on the Niagara Purple Eagles. Tip-off is at 7 p.m. Then on Saturday, November 23rd, Baidy Ba competes in his third consecutive NCAA cross-country championships in Madison, Wisconsin. Kent State wrestling has the Navy Classic in Annapolis, Maryland. Kent State women's basketball is inside the Mack Center at 1 p.m. against the Xavier Musketeers, and Kent State men's basketball visits nearby Cleveland State for a 7 p.m. tip. The final event through this upcoming week, Kent State football wraps up their regular season 7 p.m. at Buffalo. You can catch that game on ESPN2. As always, you can buy your tickets at ksutix.com. If you want more information on your favorite Flashes teams, visit kentstatesports.com or visit the Go Flashes app. We'll be back with more right after this.
Today, the world could use a little more understanding. Understanding nurtured by shared values. We come together at Kent State. Different dreams, different viewpoints, united by purpose. Preparing to make a difference in our divided world. Wherever you are in your life's journey, come learn with us. Begin at Kent State.
Welcome back to our Flashtalk studios. Dane Richardson with Kent State women's basketball head coach Todd Starkey. Coach, coming off 2 games in the state of North Carolina. Just take me through those first 2 contests. First, we'll start with NC State.
Everything didn't go perfect in that game, but I really liked the way our team responded to some adversity early in that game. And there wasn't a ton that was going well other than us shooting the ball. And then we look up at halftime, we're only down 5 to the number 13 team in the country. So, come out and third quarter, they got us a little bit there, but we stayed kind of within reach. And then I think with our shortened bench, we just wore down. We have players that are playing minutes and roles that they're not used to playing, and I think it just finally caught up to us against that level of talent. In the fourth quarter, they got away from us a little bit, but I was pleased with the way they continue to compete.
Elon, obviously not the result you wanted, just your overall thoughts looking back on it.
We really feel like that's a game that we beat ourselves in. We had way too many live ball turnovers that led to their easy points. I think it's a game that we certainly, if we would have played, even with our shortened roster right now, even if we would have played a little bit more focused and taken care of the basketball, that we should have won the game. But that obviously wasn't the case. A lot of things to learn from as we're moving forward. There's been a lot of adjustments this year, more so than usual, and we have to be better at adjusting to those things and playing at a little bit more efficient level. And that's what we're working through. So it's when they say trust the process, this is what it means.
Yeah.
We actually have to be a part of focusing on the process and not just on outcomes, even when we have tough losses. And so we're working through that, and I still have a lot of confidence that this team, once we get some players back healthy and we continue to improve, that we're going to put ourselves in a good spot.
Megan Murray had a nice lay-in, a good 3-pointer in the first half, played some nice defense at the top of your 2-3 zone. What can you say about her development?
Both of our freshmen, her and Megan and Journey, are both playing in elevated and magnified roles a lot earlier than we expected, and probably than they did too. You usually like to bring freshmen along, especially when you have strong upperclassmen, and give them the opportunity to develop. The nice thing about it is they're learning on the court in game situations. So, so with that comes from growing pains. I mean, you have to take the good with the bad, and that they're consistently improving. I like the way Megan played, specifically in the second half against Elon, did some nice things and took care of the basketball for us. Well. So both players have had their moments early on, and they'll continue to develop, and we need them to.
Deanna Gray and Janae Tyler are slated to come back at some point for your team. Obviously, not sure exactly when, but what do those two do?
And Janae was coming off the bench but played starters minutes, and Deanna Gray obviously began to start but was playing major minutes. When you take those two out of the equation, and then you add Kaylee Perkins to that, that's 3 starters, that you were counting on for this season that have not been available on a consistent basis. So once again, trying to get our feet, kind of on the ground, working around that, and we're hopeful that those players will be back at some point. And in the meantime, we have to play better basketball and no rest for the weary, because we have a really good Duquesne squad coming in this week, followed by Xavier.
Yeah, and speaking of Duquesne, they have a great point guard, a senior in Megan McConnell. What are some of those things you have to do to prevent her not only from scoring, but also from being a pest on defense and facilitating the basketball as well?
I hate coaching against her, but she's a heck of a player, very tough competitor. She's a player that you kind of put on triple-double watch every game that she plays, because she just knows how to do everything right. And so she's really the centerpiece for their team and makes them go, is their engine, their energy, and makes all the right plays. So it's you come out of a basketball family like the McConnells, and you know how to play and you know how to compete. So excited for the challenge, and we'll have to figure all the pieces out, not just her.
Do you definitely look to your senior leaders here in these next couple of games, Jenna Batch and Bridget Dunn, and did you say anything to them heading into this big week?
We have a lot of conversations and that type of thing that obviously remain between coaches and players, but at the same time, they know. They've seen it before. They've been a part of successful teams. They've been a part of this winning culture that we've had here for a long time now, and they understand that what it looks like. And they want to get things right as well. And so we've talked about just looking inward and making sure everybody's doing what they need to do to add to the equation. And then as they say, all ships rise with the tide.
Duquesne on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Xavier on Saturday at 1 p.m. That's head coach Todd Starkey of the Kent State women's basketball team. Coach, thanks for the time.
Sounds good. Go Flashes.
That'll do it for this week's episode of Flash Talk. We have no episode next week due to the Thanksgiving holiday. Happy Thanksgiving at home to all the Golden Flashes fans. For our entire GFTV studio, Ethan Lachinsky, Justin Spots, I'm Dane Richardson saying good night and go Flashes.
As you know, Kent State Athletics, our basketball team has historically been a huge part of our athletic department. We have a winning tradition. We always bring a great game. But in today's day and age, the basketball game itself isn't going to entice the average fan. We really need to come over the top. We need to do these exciting things like they do in professional sports. And without sponsors or partners like Ken Ganley, we wouldn't be able to afford to do like tonight, the esports night with the Ken Ganley game room. Also being able to do the $10,000 putt at halftime that they're supporting. So those types of things help us advertise and get out into the community and maybe reach people who are not just the average basketball fan. They also help us out off the court. So many of our faculty, our staff, and our coaching know that they can go to Ken Ganley Chevrolet, get themselves a vehicle in a short amount of time without having to shop everywhere. They're so important to us on so many levels that we're just so grateful that they're a part of our family, and I don't know how we would live without them.